Hi, I'm Marie. Welcome to 50 Plus Home and Gardening. Today we're going to talk about fruit tree shaping. I know some of you are going to say, I don't want a fruit tree because it takes 3 to 5 years for it to get any fruit. But don't think of it like that. Think of it as a beautiful tree that you can have in your yard, in your garden, something that you can control, and later on you can get some fruit from it. So you can do, let me give you some shapes that you can do to your trees. I don't know if you can see that. All right, your first shape you can do is you can do a shade tree style. You can cut all the branches up. You can limb up your tree to a regular shade tree style. Now with that tree, it would be more of it's called a standard fruit tree. A standard grows 20 feet and up. It's definitely a shade tree, and it would be hard to manage in another shape. So if you want to get a standard large shade tree and then have fruit later on, get something that's called a standard. It should say right on the tag, or you can ask someone to help you to define that. The standards are the largest of all fruit trees, not one that you want to keep down because it wants to grow it's 20 feet or more. Another shape you can do is keeping all the branches in and low. That's the type that is really going to be easy for you to pick at, but also you got to remember your friends, deer, bunnies, and other things may try to get it if it's super low. I may have to keep mine netted in order for them not to get into it. That's the kind that you can keep in to the trunk, and the fruit will grow close to the trunk's area. You can easily pick at that. It's not necessary topiary or any shape. It's just you're tightening it up, you're keeping it close. That would be probably a dwarf tree would be better. So there are three. You've got standard, semi-dwarf, and you have dwarf. A dwarf tree only grows about 8 to 10 feet. So if you wanted to keep something small and short so that you could pick at it easily, I would get a dwarf. The middle one is called a semi-dwarf. A semi-dwarf, you can do a topiary or espalier, something that you can grow against a wall, on a trellis, or if it's just in the open, you can make a shape. You can do anything you want with fruit trees. I don't know why, but they actually do like to be pruned, and they do better. They have less disease, and they like to be sharpened up. So if you want to have a espalier and you want to control this, a semi-dwarf that grows about 15 to 20 feet or less, that would be its height. But if you manage it and keep it, that would be a good. It's called semi-dwarf. It's a middle-size fruit tree. That would be the tree for you to start out with. It handles shaping very well. Okay, I'm in my shop and I just want to show you this tool. Oops, I'm gonna hit stuff. It's super long, and it's a fruit picker. So as you can see, it has very strong claws, and you would pull it down from the tree and pull down, and it goes into a basket which has a piece of foam. So it's a very cool little thing. I actually haven't tried it because I usually let the squirrels take the top, but you would only need a very, let me see, everything's in the way. This is a very, very long pole. So this pole is like probably taller than Jeff. This is like 8 to 9 feet. It's pretty tall. It's like at the very, very tippy top of this area. So anyways, if you had a standard fruit tree, you would want to get one of these. This didn't cost very much. I go to walmart.com and I get a lot of good deals, and you can just keep looking. I don't know. This doesn't have a name brand on it. I don't really know. I think it was probably made in China. Who knows? But it's actually very sturdy, and it's a very cool thing. But if you keep it in your shop and your birds can get it, look, they'll probably make a nest out of this. It's a great nest. So if you had a standard tree or a semi-dwarf tree, that's when you'd want to have a pole, especially if you let it grow into a large tree shape. Other than that, you just need hands. Here's an example of a standard fruit tree. It's probably, I don't know, 25 feet. But my husband is climbing up the hill. All right, so my husband is 6'1", so you can you can see how tall this is. I don't know, it looks like it could be 30 feet. Raise your hand. Yay. Yeah, so I'm thinking if you add where he was and that 6'6", it's just like, oh my goodness, that is a tall tree. But they have, one thing about an older tree is the structure's already there. So they have let this tree go into 3 main trunks, and I can't do much about it. I didn't want to lose the integrity of this tree. I did cut what was inside. This is a cherry tree, a sour cherry tree. So all the cherries grow on the outside of this tree. So it grows kind of like all the way around on the outside. So it is what it is. I may not have cut that way in the beginning, but because they have small fruit, it doesn't weigh it down. So even though it's very wide, I would not have done this to an apple tree. If you were loaded with apples, these branches would be on the ground and probably crack. So it works for this cherry tree. It's really pretty in the spring, and I'm going to leave it. All right, right next to the cherry tree is another standard. These are both standards. Over 20 feet is a standard fruit tree. This is a pear tree, and you can see it has more upright branches. That's just the way pears grow. I can see that there are some lower branches that they may look wonky if you wanted the leader, which is a center that goes straight up. I don't want that because I actually want to pick some. I want enough of this to stay out of the John Deere area so we can mow close to the tree, but I also want enough so I don't have to pick. I can't reach anything up here. It just falls and dies. So a standard is a very, very tall tree. This was already here. I can't do much about it, but I am going to cut out the center of this tree just to make the leader start to branch out. Here's the third fruit tree that is a standard. It is super, super tall. This is another pear. Pears tend to go straight up. So I'm going to take out the center, let the rest of these fill in a little bit, and again, I can't do much about it. I can't shorten it. I can't do much to it because it was here when I got here. It's beautiful. It's got a lot of beautiful flowers in the spring, but it is not what I would have wanted because I can't reach any of the fruit. They just have to drop. I pick them up. So I'm leaving it there. Now it's kind of like a shade tree. So since I have some standard trees, I did buy one more standard, and so close to the house you have a pear, and I bought another tree that is a standard size, which means it's going to get big like this. It is a plum, and then I have this tree as the third standard. Besides this cherry kind of stands alone. It has multiple trunks, but these have one main trunk, and then they have their fruit. And this one is going to be a standard too. I thought I would like this to be large shade tree as well as this tree and as well as this tree, so that it would block all the other trees that I'm going to actually do in a funky way, which I will show you. It doesn't look quite as good from the house view, but I want it to be so I can pick things. So I'll show you how I'm going to cut these back. So here I'm going to take off the fence. I'm not going to worry about the mulch or the weeds right now. I'm only worried about cutting. So I'm going to cut the tree the way I want it to grow. This one is a standard, even though it looks like an infant. I like small trees because I can control how they're going to grow up. The other trees that I have that are already developed, no choice, you kind of have to leave them alone because they're very old. So I'm going to put this into a standard shade tree style. All right, I want this tree shade style, so I'm going to cut down everything low. You want to get as close to the trunk as possible because this will grow another sucker. If you see something growing below where you want it, you just flick it off while it's a baby. Flick, 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 anything that's growing out. All right, this one is done. Except I may trim this one right above. I don't know if you can see this. I trimmed this right above a node or whatever that, where the next tree limb is going to come out. Just did it right above. Okay, we've trimmed it where I want it. This I wanted to grow into a shade tree because this is the one closest to the house along with this other standard. So I figured let's match, and also it'll keep the rest of these guys kind of in disguise while these are shading. Next year I will see what I want to cut out. I want to make sure that I have plenty of air space. See my hands? Plenty of air space for fruit. This one I may end up cutting back because it's just growing too close together. But I can cut that back in the spring if I want. So this looks good to me. That's how I want it. And I'm going to put the cage back on and we're done. This is a semi-dwarf Reliance peach tree. I want to keep this low. So all I'm going to do is look for branches that are touching, crossing, or just too close. This looks pretty good except for maybe this one. It's such a small one. Every one that I bought, every tree that I bought, fruit tree, they came just a stick. So they have grown all of this in 1 year. Doesn't sound like much, but it's enough for me. See these two crossing? I'm going to cut these off. This one's going in, so I'm going to take him off. This one is going in, so I'm going to take him off. Everything is spaced really well. Everything is going out on the outside of the tree. This is another little clump that I just want to get rid of half of the things. I actually think in this case I'm going to get rid of the leader. Okay, so now there's plenty of space for peaches, plenty of space here. Come down here. Actually, I don't like this. Good. Looks like I can get everything. Oops, I think I'm going to get rid of him. I don't like anything going straight up. Okay, so I have low branches. This is going to be wonky, but it's going to be easy for me to pick from. Peach tree, I am going to leave it fenced so that no squirrels will get them. Okay, I like that. Looks good. It's very cleaned out. This is not like a shade tree style. This is for picking. Actually, I just saw this. Remember I said I don't like things that go straight up if you're gonna have branching. So I took off the leader on that side Just remember, no crossing branches, nothing straight up unless you want a leader, nothing more than, I would cut out anything that's close to an inch apart, make it 4 inches apart, and leave a lot of space in between. I'm telling you, fruit trees like to be cut, so don't be afraid, unless you want it to be a standard tree with a trunk that's like a shade tree. That you can just leave most of them in, but I'd still open it up just a little bit. All right, this tree is called Arkansas Black. He's the only dwarf that I planted. So he's gonna stay miniaturized, and I want him easy to be easy picking. So I'm looking at the top. He can be a little bit taller. I'm good with that. He's still shorter than I. That's good. So I'm gonna come down here, and I'm gonna take out the taller so that they have, here's 3 open wide space. Coming down, these look really good. Looking good. Looking good. Looking good. I think this is a little crowded. Looking good. Okay, not much to do on this one. He looks good. He is disease resistant to cedar apple rust, I think it's called, and we'll see how he does out here. This is Liberty. I'm going to cut anything straight up, touching, crossing, or too many. All right, I'm going to keep this towards the center. See that? So all the apples are going to grow not quite topiary or spalier, but I'm going to keep a tight watch on this. It was just a stick, and it's now doing its growing, and I'm going to keep it tight so all the apples stay within the fence line, and I can control a little bit from deer and squirrels. Even though they may climb the fence, I'll see if I like it. But I kind of like the fact that some of these will be at my height. This one is called Grimes. It got a little bit bigger. It was also a stick. So I'm going to take out anything that's straight up and crossing too close. That's all I'm going to do. That looks nice. I may cut this guy out. He's now the leader. I don't know if I want that, but let's let him get a little bigger. All right, I think this is called Empire. Can't remember. There's its fencing beside it. I don't want it to grow super tall. This is a semi-dwarf also. And it has a lot of branching on the bottom, which I actually like. So I'm going to leave that except for crossing branches and the leader. This side will be a nice shade side. Even though it's on the west, pretty soon it's going to be full of beautiful apple trees, plum trees, peach trees, pear trees already, cherry trees already. It's going to be a fabulous orchard. All right, I hope this didn't scare you about working with fruit trees. They love to be pruned. Don't be scared of it. Just pick the size that you would like to work with. If you want to do topiary, espalier, and you want to have something against the wall, dwarf size. Maybe semi-dwarf if you can keep up with it. A standard is a large shade tree with fruit. So if you need another shade tree and you just want to have it as a specimen, that's going to work really good in your garden. So I hope you learned something, and keep moving, keep gardening, and stay creative. I'll see you next time.